everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do my first reading vlog of 2023. So we are about midway through February now. I have set my reading goal this year to read 30 books, and so far I've read 6, which is actually about 3 books ahead of schedule at the moment. I've been really getting back into my reading. It's much easier when I've got a half term like this week, so I've literally sat and read in bed this morning, having a lovely lazy time, and I've actually finished my 6th book of the year. So this was going to be my first 5 books of the year, but I might chuck in that bonus extra one that I finished this morning as well. So like I've said in my previous reading vlogs, I read on a Kindle mainly, but I've actually thrown in a couple of paperbacks. I've read 3 books, so half the books I've read so far this year have been a paperback. The reason being is that in about November last year I joined Best Book Club, who are on Instagram, and the books that they have had so far have actually always been cheaper in paperback than they have been on Kindle. So for example, this one, The Four Winds, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, was £4.99 on Kindle, but only £4.50 as a paperback. And I've really actually quite enjoyed sort of snuggling up with a paperback again. I have missed it since I've gone to a Kindle. I do find the Kindle more enjoyable for me to read because I like to read in bed, so it means I can turn the light off, and the backlight of my Kindle Paperwhite means I can still read in the dark. But yeah, so I've thrown in a couple of paperbacks so far in 2023 as well. So the first book I finished this year was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So this was one that I was actually reading over the Christmas holidays, and then sort of just finished it in the first couple of days of January, so it's counting as my first book of 2023. Now this one, as it says on the cover, is a TikTok sensation, which is mainly what led me to read it. I've seen a lot of book vloggers and book Instagrams mention this book, so I thought I would give it a try. And I gave this book 3 stars out of 5. It was okay. I don't really see what the big hype was about, if I'm honest. So the premise of this book is sort of a fake dating, fake relationship sort of vibe. So you have Olive, who is a PhD student. Apologies for the noise, it's still literally like a building site here. So yeah, you have PhD student Olive, who in a moment of madness panics and kisses somebody who turns out to be one of the hot professors of the department. So then they sort of pretend date because Olive is trying to convince one of her friends to go out with a boy that she thinks he likes. So she kisses someone else and pretends to be with him so that she'll feel more comfortable going out with the other guy. Not my favourite sort of setup, and it's one of those books that you know from the beginning that they're fake dating, but they're going to fall in love with each other. So yeah, predictable. Did have a couple of moments where I was like, okay, I like this development in the story. I really liked Olive's character. I liked seeing their relationship grow, even though it's inevitable that they're always going to end up together. I did sort of enjoy seeing how that relationship and friendship grew into something more. But yeah, bit of a predictable one for me. I used to absolutely love these sort of romance books, the romantic comedy books. I've read a couple so far this year, and I think I'm just not enjoying them as much as I used to. I don't know if because I realise now that they're not very realistic. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was okay. I wouldn't rush to pick up another book by Ali Hazelwood because I think they all follow a similar sort of romance in academia vibe, which I wouldn't be rushing to pick up again in a hurry, but I did enjoy it. So first book, The Love Hypothesis, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, 3 stars. Okay, so book number 2 is this one, The Four Winds by Kristin. And this is a book I read because it was the January book club pick from Best Book Club, which I joined back in November, and I absolutely loved this story. I don't think it would have been something that I would have picked up myself. It's a historical fiction genre. It's set throughout the 1930s, across the backdrop of America's Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, which was not something that I'd ever sort of known had happened before, but it was an incredible drought in the 1930s in America. So that's sort of the backdrop around this. So we start in the early 1930s. Elsa Martinelli, the main character, is a bit of an outcast in her family. She was ill as a child, is seen as this sort of bit of a nuisance. She's tall, she's not considered particularly pretty. She considered a bit of a nuisance to her family, but she's quite a brave woman. She goes out one night against her parents' wishes, but that night actually leads to her falling pregnant with a man called Rafe. So she moves into Rafe's family. Her parents are disgusted, throw her out, disown her, but she is taken in quite reluctantly to start with by Rafe's family, and his parents grow to love her and give her sort of the family that she has never had. So Elsa has sort of now found this new life with Rafe and his parents, Rose and Tony, on a farm that they live in. They live on even, which gives them their livelihood. So Rose and Tony came over for their great American dream, which was having this farm. And then the Great Depression starts to set in. The drought means that the crops aren't growing very well anymore. They're not making any money. And some of the descriptions of this dust bowl that sort of spread over the America were harrowing. So it makes, they have 2 children in the end, and Anthony, their son, becomes incredibly ill with inhalation of dust, and so I actually felt like I was suffocating with them as I was reading it. It's really powerfully written. Rafe disappears and Elsa is left to make the horrifying decision of whether she should take her children and leave for California. California is represented in this book as the land of milk and honey. People from their surrounding neighbourhoods start to leave for California and send back messages of a better life that can be had there. So Elsa is really torn between this loving their life on the farm, but actually whether they are able to survive there or not. And I won't go into too much detail, but the fight for their lives that they have throughout the whole story is harrowing. It's heartbreaking. It is, you just live and breathe every minute of it with them. And it's just a really powerful, compelling story. So it took me a while to get into this. I would say about the first third of the book, I was like, man, I'm not sure. I'll stick with it. And boy, am I glad that I did, because it's just beautifully written. I have been recommended another book by Kristin through the book club called The Nightingale, which is set against the backdrop of World War II, which is very much high on my to be read list. But yeah, this was a wonderful read. Get your tissues ready, and yeah, it's a tough one. It's not sunshine and roses. It's quite bleak at times, but I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's not something I would usually have picked up, but I'm really glad I did. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I actually haven't given a 5-star out so far this year, that elusive 5-star book that is waiting for me in 2023. But yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed and would highly recommend. Okay, next up, book number 3 that I read this year was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I would presume that you pronounce that. This one was another one that came really highly recommended from a lot of places. I've seen it on a lot of best lists. Again, lots of reading vloggers and Instagrams had highly recommended it. It's got on the front cover, one of the best books I've ever read, as a quote from John Green, which sounds like it should be. Absolutely great. It just wasn't for me. I really tried to love it. It just wasn't for me. There's a lot of talk of gaming in it, which I'm not massively into, so I don't know if that maybe sort of pushed me away from it a little bit. So the story is about Sadie and Sam, who meet as childhood friends in a hospital sort of waiting room in the children's wing of the hospital. So Sam is there as a patient. He has had a bad accident which has left his leg quite severely damaged, and Sadie is there because her sister is suffering with leukemia and is spending a lot of time at the hospital. So Sadie and Sam grow this sort of bond and this friendship around playing video games in the family waiting room at the hospital. And it's their relationship that is explored and discovered throughout this book that spans about 3 decades. So it goes from when Sadie and Sam are young children to their meeting later in life, and how their relationship evolves, their friendship evolves. They work together on producing games and creating games. Sadie is a game designer. Sam has a big love of games, and together they start this working relationship which then feeds throughout the rest of the whole story. There's also another character, Marks, involved, who is Sam's roommate at the time and then becomes business partners with the two of them as well. And it explores how each of those characters changes over this span of time, how their friendship evolves, changes, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. And I really liked that it spanned quite a long time. You really grew to know and love those characters. But yeah, there was just a bit of a disconnect for me. I can't really quite put my finger on what it was. I enjoyed it. I read it. I didn't want to give up on it or anything like that. I just had a bit of a disconnect for me. Like I said, I don't know if it was the heavy gaming theme. That actually, I learned quite a lot about video game designing in that actually, and sounds really fun. But I don't know if that was just maybe what pushed it into a not quite as enjoyable for me as I hoped it would be. Still a beautiful story, really well written. I did think at the start of the book I was having to like look up the meanings of quite a lot of words, and I felt like they were, when I sort of realised what those words meant, I was like, well, that was unnecessary. I did feel like it was, through the first few chapters, I felt like it was trying to prove something to me, like, oh, I'm an author and I know all these fancy words. But that did tail off a little bit. So at the start I was like, oh, if I'm having to check like a word a page about what it actually means because I've never heard of that word in my life, then am I actually going to enjoy this book? But like I said, that did tail off, and I did enjoy it, just not as much as the hype would have led me to believe that I would enjoy it, which is a bit of a shame, but still an enjoyable read, and I still gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Book number 4 of 2023, I don't have to show you because I read it in paperback that I bought for my mum for Christmas and borrowed from her, but it was It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. Now, I was a big fan of It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I gave it 5 stars, and I thought it was a beautiful, again, heartbreaking book, and I was excited to read the sequel. Now, did the sequel need to happen? Probably not. Was it nice to read? Absolutely yes. So the sequel picks up exactly where we left off with Atlas and Lily. If you haven't read It Ends With Us, then I would skip through to the next book because there might be some spoilers here. So it starts off exactly where Atlas and Lily pick off, having met back on the street, with Lily now single, with her daughter, and yeah, so it just picks off and it explores Atlas and Lily's relationship. And I can't remember if it was in the foreword or in the bit at the end from the author, but Colleen Hoover said that she sort of wrote this for Atlas and Lily, for the ending that they sort of deserved, because they had gone through so much throughout the duration of It Ends With Us. And I just thought it was really lovely. I liked the introduction of Atlas's brother into the equation as well. And yeah, I just thought, no, it probably didn't need to be written, but it was still really enjoyable, and I really liked it. I think I gave it, what did I give it? Oh, I gave it 5 stars. I think that might have been a little too generous. I might reduce that back to a 4. But yeah, it was just lovely. It gave me the closure that I needed after It Ends With Us, and I think that's purely why it was written, to give people a bit more closure on the whole situation and to see what came of Atlas and Lily at the end of It Ends With Us. I'm saying end a lot. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I've given it 5 stars, but I think I'm going to reduce that to a 4 out of 5 for It Starts With Us. Okay, book number 5 so far this year is X's and O's by Amy Lee. This was the February pick from Best Book Club, and you can probably tell from going from the 4 wins of January to X's and O's in February. I really like Best Book Club for going for a range of genres, a range of authors, and yeah, mixing up quite a lot. So X's and O's by Amy Lee. So this story is based around the character of Tara. Now Tara is a bookstagram influencer, and she's obsessed with romance novels. So the idea here is that she is looking into what she calls a trope, which I don't know when that became a thing, but apparently it is now, and this sort of second chance trope. So Tara's ambition is to go through a list of her exes, to meet up with some of them again and see if she can find a second chance romance with one of her exes, like her grandmother did in marrying sort of a childhood sweetheart. Quite a fun idea, but at the start of the story she also moves in with a new roommate called Trevor, who's a firefighter. I know, you can see where this is going, can't you? Again, a bit like the love hypothesis, you know from the first couple of chapters that exactly how it's going to end, but it doesn't mean that the journey to get there isn't enjoyable. So as Tara goes through this ex hunt, which is drastically unsuccessful, as you can imagine, Trevor is there to hold her hand and give her advice, and yeah, and just follow along in her journey. And as Tara develops feelings for Trevor, she just thinks that he is completely out of her league, and you know that Trevor feels the absolute opposite. It's, oh, will they, won't they? Oh, will they, won't they? Of course they will. But yeah, another enjoyable sort of rom-com. Like I said, I do think I'm growing out of that genre a little bit. It will take a pretty special book of this genre to pull me out of that funk, I think. I just think I'm not into that at the moment. Again, it might change, my book tastes change throughout the year, so we'll see. But yeah, I gave this one a 3 out of 5. Enjoyable, fun, but not gonna blow your mind. And bonus book number 6, which I actually finished this morning, is I Found You by Lisa Jewell. I'm a big fan of Lisa Jewell books. The Family Upstairs is one of my favourite, and I actually haven't read The Family Remains yet, so that's going to be bumped up my to-be-read list now as well, I think. So this idea, I really like the way Lisa Jewell writes books, and that she flips between different points of view, different characters' stories, so that you start building up and piecing together all of the information that you've got. So the 3 different sort of stories you've got going on as you read this. You've got Lily, who is 21 years old and from the Ukraine, and who has just married a man much older than her. They've been married only 3 weeks, and one day her husband does not come home from work. He goes missing. So you've got that story. You've also got the story of Alice, who on the same day that Lily's husband goes missing, Alice finds a man on the beach, no personal belongings with him, in sort of a trance, if you like. He can't remember anything about himself. He doesn't know what his name is. He doesn't know where he lives. He doesn't know what his job is. He doesn't have any memories of anything whatsoever. And Alice sort of takes him under her wing and tries to help him to recover his memories. So at the same time that you're following those 2 stories in the present, then you're also following a story about 20 years ago, 30 years ago even, in 1993. And this is the story of a family who holiday in a place called Riding House Bay, which is where Alice lives in the present as well. So this family holiday in Riding House Bay, and there's 2 teenagers, Kirsty, who is 15, and her brother Graham, who is 17, and the friendship that is struck up with a man called Mark, who is another teenager at 19, so a little bit older, and it follows sort of their story of what they get up to over this summer. And yeah, I can't really share much more without giving away any spoilers, but it's, you think you know how it might all come together, then you change your mind, then you change your mind again, then you change it again, and then you discover the truth. So yeah, I've sat and read this over the last couple of days. I really like it when books have those 3 different stories sort of running concurrently, because what it makes me do is it tells me something in this story, but I've got to read another 3 chapters to get back to that story again. And that's what reels me in. That's something that I really enjoy about a book. And it just keeps me going. It's what I call a page turner. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Still only 4 out of 5 stars. I am being stingy with my 5 stars this year. I think the reason this would have got 5-star if there had been a bit more of a plot twist. You kind of do eventually see it coming, although I'd had lots of previous theories before I figured out what had actually happened. It didn't make me go, oh my god, and that is the sort of reaction I need for a 5-star for a thriller, I think. So they were my first 6 books of 2023, but what am I planning on reading next? So I just thought I'd give you a bit of an idea of what's currently towards the top of my to be read list. So many books, not enough time in my opinion, but at the moment I've got a few that are going to be read next. So also I just wanted to mention that if you have a Kindle and you like getting good deals on books that you want, I would sign up for BookBub. So every day now I get an email which tells me the deals of the day. So for example, this is one I got yesterday. So it gives me some of the books that are currently on offer for 99p on Kindle or $1.99. And I have found, you can set up alerts for different authors. So I have found a couple of books I've really wanted to read and have almost spent $4.99 on Kindle that have then gone down to 99p or $1.99. So a couple of those are Just Got Real by Jane Fallon. Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm a big Taylor Jenkins Reid fan, so I'm looking forward to reading that soon. The Paper Palace, which I'm looking forward to reading by, who is that by? Miranda Cowley Heller. That one I saw a lot about last year, so I'm looking forward to reading that. I got that for 99p on Kindle as well. I want to read The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah after reading The Four Winds and seeing how beautiful her writing is. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, so those are sort of next up on my to be read list. So give it a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, and I might have another 5 books to share my opinions on. So thank you so much for watching, and please share with me in the comments below any recommendations that you've got of books that you've read recently, or if you've read any of those and had similar opinions or different opinions to me. I'd love to know what you're reading and what you thought of those of the books that I've mentioned today. And I'm also on Goodreads as well, so I'll link that in the description box below too. But thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more content in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!